The rain had been falling for hours, turning the city into a blur of headlights and quiet loneliness. Most people rushed past the small café near the park, heads down, shoulders tight, eager to escape the cold. But Ethan Carter wasn't rushing anywhere. He sat by the window with a lukewarm cup of coffee, his phone face down, his mind heavy in the familiar way it had been for years. Being a single father wasn't just a role, it was his entire world. Every decision, every breath, every sacrifice revolved around his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. That night, Lily was at his sister's house, asleep in warm blankets, safe. And Ethan, for the first time in a long time, felt the weight of silence. Then he noticed her. A woman sitting alone at the far corner of the café, her hands trembling slightly around a mug she hadn't touched. Her coat was expensive, but she looked as though she didn't even feel the cold. Her eyes were fixed on nothing, glossy with tears she refused to let fall. She wasn't just sad. She looked broken. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who intruded on strangers. Life had taught him to mind his own business, to keep his head down. But something about her loneliness felt too familiar. It reminded him of the nights after his wife passed away, when grief sat beside him like an unwanted companion, when the world kept moving and he felt stuck in the ruins of his own heart. Before he could talk himself out of it, Ethan stood up, walked over slowly, and stopped at her table. "Excuse me," he said gently. "I don't mean to bother you, but you look like you could use someone to sit with." The woman blinked, startled, as if she'd forgotten other people existed. Her voice was quiet. "Why would you do that?" Ethan gave a small shrug. "Because I've been there. And sometimes, silence feels heavier when you carry it alone." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she nodded. "Fine," she whispered. "Sit." Ethan pulled out the chair carefully, as though afraid she might disappear if he moved too quickly. "I'm Ethan," he said. She hesitated. "Claire." Her name was simple, but there was something guarded in the way she said it, like it wasn't the whole truth. They sat in silence for a while, the rain tapping softly against the glass. Then Claire's composure cracked. "I thought I had everything," she murmured suddenly, her voice shaking. "Power, money, respect, people who smile at me all day long." Ethan listened, not interrupting. "But none of it matters when you realize you have no one who actually sees you." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "I spent my entire life building something huge," she continued. "And tonight, I realized I built it on an empty foundation." Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know her story, but he knew that kind of emptiness. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Claire let out a bitter laugh. "Don't be. This is my fault." Ethan frowned. "What happened?" Her eyes flickered toward his, and for the first time, he saw fear beneath her sadness. "I trusted the wrong people," she admitted. "And now I don't know who's real anymore." Ethan leaned back slightly. "That's a hard lesson." Claire's lips trembled. "Do you know what it's like to have everyone want something from you?" Ethan chuckled sadly. "Not money, no. But I know what it's like to feel like the world only sees what you can give." Claire looked at him more closely now. "And what do you give?" Ethan's expression softened. "Everything. To my daughter." Claire blinked. "You have a child?" "Yes. Lily. She's my whole reason for getting up in the morning." Something shifted in Claire's face, something almost tender. "I envy that," she whispered. Ethan tilted his head. "You envy a tired single dad?" Claire's eyes filled again. "I envy having someone who loves you without conditions." That hit Ethan harder than he expected. Because he knew Lily loved him purely, but he also knew how lonely adulthood could be. The café grew quieter as the night stretched on. Claire spoke in fragments, like someone testing the safety of being honest. She talked about pressure, about expectations, about being surrounded but never held. Ethan didn't offer grand solutions. He simply stayed. And for the first time that night, Claire's shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Before she left, she stood up quickly, as though afraid she'd stayed too long. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost inaudible. Ethan smiled. "Anytime." Claire hesitated, then added, "You're different from the people I usually meet." Ethan laughed softly. "That's probably because I'm just a dad who can't afford a second cup of coffee." For the first time, Claire smiled. A real smile. Then she turned and walked out into the rain, disappearing into the city. Ethan watched her go, not knowing that this small moment of kindness was about to change his life forever. Because he had no idea that Claire wasn't just a heartbroken stranger. She was one of the most powerful billionaire CEOs in the country. The next morning, Ethan's life returned to its usual rhythm. Breakfast for Lily. Packing her school bag. Tying her shoelaces while she giggled about a story her teacher told. Life was simple, messy, exhausting, and beautiful. Ethan worked 2 jobs, one at a small architecture firm during the day, and evenings delivering groceries to make ends meet. He didn't have luxury. He didn't have time for dreams. He had responsibility. That afternoon, while Ethan was at the firm, his boss called him into the conference room. "There's someone here to see you," Mr. Hanley said, looking confused. Ethan frowned. "Who?" Mr. Hanley swallowed. I think you should come." When Ethan walked into the room, he froze. Claire stood near the window, dressed sharply in a sleek black suit. Her hair was pulled back elegantly, her posture completely different from the fragile woman in the café. She looked untouchable. Ethan blinked. "Claire?" She turned, and for a moment, her eyes softened. "Hi, Ethan." His boss nearly choked. "You know Ms. Kingsley?" Ethan's stomach dropped. "Ms. Kingsley?" "Claire Kingsley. The billionaire CEO of Kingsley Enterprises, the woman whose name was on skyscrapers and headlines?" Ethan stared at her, stunned. You're her." Claire exhaled slowly. "Yes." Ethan took a step back. "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire's voice was quiet. "Because last night, I didn't want to be her. I just wanted to be human." Ethan didn't know what to say. Claire glanced around the room. "I'm sorry if this is overwhelming." Overwhelming didn't even begin to cover it. She continued, "I came because I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About your daughter. About love that isn't bought." Ethan swallowed hard. "Claire, I'm just a guy who offered a chair." Claire's gaze sharpened. "No, Ethan. You offered kindness when you had nothing to gain." She paused, then added, "That's rare in my world." Mr. Hanley cleared his throat nervously. "Miss Kingsley, is this about the city development project?" Claire nodded. "Actually, yes. And I want Ethan Carter on the team." Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" Mr. Hanley stammered, That's a major opportunity." Claire looked directly at Ethan. "I reviewed your designs. You're talented. And I trust you." Ethan felt his heart pound. Trust. That word carried weight. But with opportunity came fear. He wasn't used to being pulled into a world like hers. "I don't belong in billionaire circles," he admitted quietly. Claire's expression softened. "Neither do I, most days." Ethan blinked. And suddenly, he realized something. Money hadn't saved her from loneliness. Power hadn't protected her from heartbreak. She was still just a person. Over the weeks that followed, Ethan joined the project, working closely with Claire. At first, it was awkward. Their worlds were too different. She attended board meetings in glass towers. He packed Lily's lunches in the morning. But slowly, something unexpected happened. Claire started visiting Ethan's world. She came to Lily's school play, sitting quietly in the back. She joined them for simple dinners, looking almost amazed by how warm a small apartment could feel. And Lily, with the fearless honesty of a child, asked one evening, "Are you lonely, Claire?" Claire froze. Ethan held his breath. Claire's eyes shimmered. "Yes," she admitted. Lily smiled and climbed into her lap. "Then you can be with us." Claire's breath caught, and tears spilled freely. In that moment, Ethan saw the truth. Claire wasn't healed by wealth. She was healed by belonging. And Ethan, who had spent years thinking he had nothing to offer the world but struggle, realized his greatest gift wasn't money. It was his heart. One night, months later, Claire stood beside Ethan on his balcony, the city lights glowing below. "I used to think success meant standing above everyone," she whispered. Ethan glanced at her. "And now?" Claire turned toward him. "Now I think success is having someone sit with you when you're falling apart." Ethan's throat tightened. "And I think," she continued, voice trembling, "that meeting you saved me." Ethan shook his head gently. "No, Claire. You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you weren't alone." Claire smiled through tears. "And you reminded me," Ethan added, "that kindness can reach places money never will." The rain began again, soft and steady. But this time, it didn't feel cold. It felt like a new beginning. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing in the world isn't being a billionaire CEO. Isn't having everything. It's having someone look at you in your darkest moment and simply say, "You don't have to carry this alone." And that is the message that lasts. No matter how rich or poor, broken or strong. We all need connection. We all need kindness. And sometimes, one small chair offered to a stranger can change an entire life.